How's everybody doing? Welcome to last week of Epoch. My name's Grim Reaper, and with me as always,
Cynical Squid.
and
Sorry, and Perrythepig.
and tonight we've got Amarathy as our special guest. How you doing, Amarathy?
I'm doing well. Good day or good night to you all.
It's good night here. It's almost 9 o'clock, I think. No, 8 o'clock. It's 8 o'clock, right?
Close enough.
8 o'clock, middle of the day for me. I'm sneaking out of my work lunch break.
Nice.
Cool. So we are. This is the first time that I've been doing the podcast and the recording on my end. So if there's any technical issues, be sure to let me know. Like either during the stream here on Twitch or later on either YouTube or Spotify. Just let me know if anything's going on. We're hopefully doing things just fine right now. So, with that said, one of the purposes of this podcast is to highlight people who are in the community, people who are making builds, making content, doing stuff. And Amarathy, your builds have been all over the place. I know that you've been giving builds to people, you've been helping new players, you've been helping people who are doing the weekly races with Vision GL so that we can use your enormous brain. How about you tell us a little bit about yourself, other than these builds that just blow up the screen and make it feel like I'm playing Path of Exile? Who are you?
So I've been playing like action RPGs and regular MMO RPGs for quite some time, and a little bit of MOBAs. So this is definitely within my realm of gaming. I bought Last Epoch, I'd say about a year and a half ago, and I think I pretty quickly fell in love with what the combat system had to offer, and I thought it was really interesting. It offered the and you can see the special guest is right behind me. But I think the way the skill systems work just intrigued me so much. So I've kind of been a little bit on and off with the game as it's gone through its progressive cycle. And I think the last few patches I've just come and been like, whoa, this is getting real good. This is like a step up on my expectations. So that's where I come from. I love the experimentation. And I love the experimentation and how it's laid out for the same reason that I can't get into Path of Exile. So it's inviting complexity.
Inviting complexity, I kind of like it. I guess as long as you're going to bring it up yourself, what does Last Epoch do for you that Path of Exile hasn't done for you? I kind of assume that everyone in the audience, if you're watching a podcast like this, you're probably into action RPGs. Like you've done this, you've done that, you played PoE, maybe you're playing Last Epoch as well. What is one game doing for you that the other game is not doing for you?
For me, when I look at Path of Exile, and so like I'm someone who's like fairly good at maths. I'm an engineer by trade. So I love all that kind of mathy stuff, right? But Path of Exile feels like I need to necessarily rely on external resources to understand the game, and also spend a huge investment just to get base knowledge of what is good, what is bad within Path of Exile, and how you create your builds. Whereas in Last Epoch, I felt like I could just pick it up and using, I guess, like a little bit of common sense here and there, and really sitting down and thinking about how my builds work, I could just go from the get go and start piecing things together. I like how the skill tag system works. I like how there's like many hybrid options that are promoted in the game. Everything's effectively a stat stick. There's no kind of like hidden information or knowledge that you just need to know. And that's what's good. And then the further you go, there's also some pretty niche stuff, which I've kind of like, that's now my hallmark, is just going for like some random node on a tree that no one looks at, and trying to make a stupid build out of it.
And I want to ask one more question before we kind of open it up, just to like make sure that the audience knows who you are. If someone catches your content on YouTube or on Twitch, what should they expect to see when they tune in?
Corgi.
Well, firstly, the corgi. That doesn't make an appearance on the YouTube video. Maybe it needs to, but it definitely does on stream. So I stream on maybe 3-4 nights a week on Australian prime time. So come catch the corgi, get the corgi cam going. He's playing with the toy at the moment because he's been lying down the whole day. And as soon as I've started talking, he's like, "Well, now's the time to make a lot of noise and ruckus." But other than that, so my YouTube videos are generally my build guides, where I want to create build guides that are like very different from how a lot of new players might anticipate the game, and I want to create builds that feel awesome to play. Grim, you right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Fighting
Grim's
Yeah,
camera's
I
all
want
over the
builds
place
that
all of a
are
sudden.
awesome
Yeah,
to play and kind of like a little bit outside the box. And then on the Twitch, I do a little bit of like science lab stuff of builds that might not necessarily be awesome to play, but might work in some capacity just to test the bounds and learn what we can do. So I've done some pretty silly builds, and some of them worked out and some of them haven't. And Twitch is just kind of like a fun playground to chat to other people and bounce ideas off.
I like it. So I want to make sure that we get Grim in here as soon as, I guess before your camera like falls or turns off or something, because I think you're on your phone right now, right?
He
So
is.
this is our mobile Twitch streaming lab. All of a sudden, we have so many things we can talk about. We've had a lot that's gone on over the past week. It's actually been 2 weeks, right? So we took last week of this podcast off because we have a couple people. I guess Squid has some like schooling stuff that he's taking care of. Grim, you've been traveling across the United States doing who knows what. We have so many topics. We can talk about like the Druid rework still. We can talk about crit and any kind of crit memes that you want to bring up. We can talk about upheaval or updog or sunder, whatever the new skill is you want to call it. It's coming out for Druid in 084. We have lots of stuff. Where do you want to start?
I'm going to tell you the first thing we're starting at. He didn't tell us the name of that dog yet.
Oh,
He's
the
got to tell
dog.
people the name of the dog.
This young son, come here, boy, come on.
It's the cutest dog.
The dog is absolutely adorable.
Look at this.
Look at him.
This is Snacks.
What's his name?
Snacks.
Snacks? I feel like every
Yeah.
time that you show Snacks on stream, you're busy telling me like what he did wrong today. It's always
He's
something
been a naughty
bad.
boy recently. Like his mother lets him get away with everything. And is
It's her fault.
surprised, like the shocked Pikachu face, that he likes to push the limit. He's actually quite smart. He knows all his commands and all his tricks and stuff like that, and he knows what to do, but he likes pushing and seeing what he can get away with.
That's
He's a
the
clever little boy.
downside. The downside of intelligence. Yup. You just
Yeah.
Yeah.
brain is too big. Oh my god, I want to floof that dog so bad. We have a dog that looks like that lives right next door, but like we don't know the owners. We only know the dog. Do I have to meet you, or can I just pet your dog?
Yeah,
All right,
to be
never
fair,
mind.
knowing
never
the
mind.
dog is the more important part, anyway.
I'm sure they're great people.
All right. So who likes that Druid rework with the bear form now looking like Arnold Schwarzenegger in a bear suit running around?
Well, it makes me want to play the game. And,
Mhm.
you
Yeah.
know, and it's like there's not much in Primalist right now that makes me want to play it. It doesn't really feel like a video game to me. It feels like just a combination of like, here's some stats, here's a pole arm, here's a thing. It feels like RuneScape. But like when you start adding in like pretty pictures and explosions and colors and graphics that don't look like they're from the late 1980s, like, yeah, you know what? This feels like a video game. I'm into it. Let's go do it.
All right, Perry, look, you've been to my stream. You know what the answer is. Visually, Tempest Strike looks amazing, okay?
I don't know why you're still on the Tempest Strike hype train. So I tuned into your stream once, Squid, and I watched Tempest Strike. It looks cool. It
Yes.
Honest to God, it looks cool. It's garbage, but it looks cool.
Look here, I'm sort of okay doing fine. We're at like 130 corruption, and things are still relatively fine.
Good.
As long as I don't run into Chapter 9 mobs.
But I think once I gave you a host, and then I saw you were playing Tempest Strike, and I just want to be like, nah, sorry, man, I've got to unhost. I'm just going to go for another hour.
We'll go host somebody
Oh,
else.
you know, it's tough out here.
Oh,
Look, I'm just trying to take undertuned skills. I was gonna say underappreciated, but there's nothing to really appreciate about it. I'm just trying to take undertuned skills and push them to their limit.
I appreciate that. I like that.
So
I can resonate with that, right?
I was gonna say, speaking of maybe underappreciated skills, you've been working on, man, which one do I even want to call out? Let's call out the sacrifice build that that you've walked me through a couple times. And I think you have like this maybe 10 or 15 minute like script that's in your head. Because I feel like every time that someone new pops into your stream, you have to like read off the script on the back of your eyebrows or the back of your eyelids and like here's what this character does. This thing procs this thing, this thing procs this thing. How are you building a character like that? Is that like an experiment that's been coming together for a long time? Or did you just sit down and power this thing out?
So the Necro Bomber has two variants, one of which is yourself being the main damage dealer and scaling player damage, and the other being the minion version. And so the minion poison version kind of came afterwards, and is probably by far the strongest version in terms of, one, it doesn't absolutely brick your PC, and two, like super survivability, and you get like 2 mil poison ticks on the dummy and stuff like that. The sacrifice version was me taking something that I'd kind of like tested before, and there's like some really weird, like the Bone Curse Sloop is something that's like, I've known about for a while, but I've never seen it properly executed. But effectively, it's like you cast Rip Blood if a minion hits an enemy on that. You know, like you get a free Rip Blood on it. So if you scale up a lot of minions and a lot of minion attack speed, you can get a lot of Rip Bloods, and then scale like your own spell damage because the Rip Blood can do that, and then like do the sacrifice stuff. And honestly, I've never really played around with like Necromancer or Dreadshade all that much. So I think that's a good thing. I look at it from a perspective of I'm not going to go look at like the meta builds and how people build their builds. I'm just going to like take a blank slate and just muck around with stuff and see what works and what doesn't work. And then once I feel like I've kind of got something, I might have a look around to see if people are taking notes and why things are strong. And make adjustments. I spend a lot of time in front of a training dummy, if that makes sense, rather than actually just running monos. Training dummy, build planner, seeing what actually works and how it actually is meant to work and stuff like that. I feel that there needs to be a verification piece within the last Epoch, and are the things like doing what they're saying they should be doing. And I do test a lot of things myself, try and provide feedback and bug reports and that as well.
Do you write,
in the meantime?
Are you writing bug reports when you find various things about the skills you explore?
Yeah.
Good on you.
Yeah.
I don't. I'm too lazy for that. But congratulations to you for being, a good beta tester for this game.
I try my best. I just like the game. I want to see it succeed. So I feel if I can, improve the game in some aspect, I'm pretty happy with that, because I reckon this will be my main game for quite some time. Like when it goes live, and I mean, it already is, right?
It feels like it. Yeah. I say this myself too, but like I tell people, I don't really like early access games. I don't really like beta games. So when I tell you that I'm basically playing Last Epoch as my main game and I'm playing it all the time, that should carry extra weight when it comes from me, because I really don't play beta games very often. It feels like it's done. I mean, okay, clearly it's not done, but like it feels like it.
Look, I've played full release ARPGs that are way worse, and as far as like the state they released in, that were in way worse state than Last Epoch is right now. So yes, it's an early access, but I've told people the same thing, where like there are problems, you will run into some weird things every now and then, but as far as early access games go, this one's way more polished than it has any business being, honestly.
So now that we've said all the good things about Last Epoch, can we get on to some drama?
Wait, what?
I want to highlight something. There might even be people in chat who are not familiar with this right now. And if someone's listening on Spotify, I want to make sure that they know what's going on. So a couple days ago on Reddit, there was a random thread. Somebody was asking, hey, how does increased critical strike chance work in Last Epoch? So for you and for me and for anybody who's played, Path of Exile in the past, what like base crit means, what a plus symbol means, like the additive crit, and then there's increased critical strike chance, and maybe a monster has increased chance to receive a crit, and like you kind of know how all those things work together. because you played, action RPGs in the past. So out of this random Reddit post, I think it was Mike, the dev from EHD, responded, and he said, "Hey, by the way, good discussion going on here in Reddit. We are thinking about drastically reducing. I think they said the word vastly reducing the amount of increased critical strike chance that's in Last Epoch." So it sounds like the primary sources of crit, of like getting higher crit chance, will all be additive. And it sounds like there'll be very, very few instances of like increased, quote unquote, critical strike chance, which is a huge change. And everybody's talking about it. And I want to make sure that we talk about it here too, because there are some spicy opinions on this. Squid, have you heard about this at all?
I have not. I managed to miss out on all this. I've been in the TFT dregs for the last like 2 weeks since the new set came out. So
Gotcha.
I haven't done a lot with Last Epoch. However, as someone who plays a lot of crit-based builds, I mean that's fine. I'll adapt to it. The game's fun enough. I'm not playing the game just because I can see big, huge yellow numbers on my screen.
What, you're not?
What?
Wait, what?
I play Tempest Strike High, so there's definitely not huge yellow numbers involved there. But no, like here's the thing. I understand why they would do it because I think the game is power creeping up to a point where the game is vastly approaching being more PoE oriented than Diablo 3 oriented, and I don't think that's where they want to lean as far as like where their place is between those two games. I think they do want to lean more to the Diablo 3 side because it is a little bit more new player accessible and stuff like that. So, I mean, if they want to change it, they want to change it. That's fine. Like I said, people will still figure out ways to get big yellow numbers to pop up on the screen. That's how ARPGs work.
I hear you. All right, Grim, what do you think? I know you've been like traveling the country over the past week or so. Have you heard about this thing?
No, I haven't heard about it, but I'm actually excited for it because I'm pretty sure I'm going to get to see something pretty busted from you or Amarathy after it comes out. So you guys are going to find something to break the game again. Like, I can always depend on you two to find something that everybody's like, oh, I've never tried that before. Then they come in there and it's like your whole entire screen is getting obliterated. And you're like, I don't know, guys. I think this might be a good build. Look at all these balls going across the screen, killing everything. This might actually just be workable.
I'm humbled by being compared to the amount of science that Amarathy does. I'm not nearly as much as a scientist as other people are. Like I've got scientists, build scientists, people who try out quirky interactions, who hang out in Twitch chat. But I'm much more on the side of like honing things and like making them playable and like actually executing them than I am on the side of like brainstorming. But I'm humbled that you think my brain is that big. Thank you.
So next question that I want to ask everybody here to follow up with this afterwards too is, with the changes to the base crit, how much more base crit do you think they're going to change around on the items? Do you think they're going to update some items to have flat base crit on them?
Go, Amarathy.
Who knows, right? It's such an interesting thing, and look, I would say that like there's three main topics around like the crit thing is, right? And none of it is newsworthy for like anyone who's just following on Last Epoch casually. We're not going to see Riker just put it on his news and be like crits changed in Last Epoch, huge news. We're not going to see that. But for a Last Epoch player, like a veteran, like most of us here, most people watching in Twitch chat, there's three kind of topics that come to mind. One is what is a better design system, and like what are the implementations of that. Two, the core issue, or one of the core issues, and why that came across in the Reddit was, how is information displayed to a new player so that they can understand a system like crit as it is in its current format? And I think, without going too much into the details, there was things that can be done before just gutting the system and doing something different. And then three is the scope stuff, but I'm sure we can get onto that later. If we go back to like which is a better system, I actually like I don't mind the changes. I would have done it slightly differently. But the thing is, like at the moment, crit is very binary in terms of if you are a crit build and have access to base crit, you go for 100% crit because it's so effective, and crit multi is really good. And you just get like 2 huge multiplier buckets on your build, and basically a 100% crit build it's usually like almost always just going to be able to clear like empowered monos no matter what you're doing. It's good. And if you don't have access to base crit, it's really bad trying to go for increased crit, because it's like, oh, you've got 100% increased crit. Well, that's 5% base crit. That's nothing. You go from 5 to 10%. And I think, like, if you look at MMORPGs, for example, or other action RPGs, like crit should be something like there should be builds that are like, yeah, 50% crit's pretty good, 20% crit's okay, 70% crit's okay, etc. Like, like you want that grayscale of how much crit you want in the build, and this could be like a really good way to get some value of crit into builds that wouldn't normally have it, to increase their damage while not necessarily overspending on that. And I think that's pretty awesome, right? Like, at the moment we've got like Baldur's Wrath, for example, that has no base crit. It's very hard to build crit around. So now you could look at a Baldur's Wrath whatever with a crit variant of it. So new builds will come out, and some builds will get gutted for sure. There's no two ways about it. How I would have handled it is I would have just made additive crit much, much, much more common, and increased crit very rare. And I think,
to be fair, that might
Yeah.
be the end result of what we're seeing here.
yeah.
Yeah.
You think like Copper Rings, instead of getting 50% increased crit, you had 5% base crit.
Sure.
Yeah, and suddenly it's a lot easier to get that, and then increased sources are kind of like very rare and very trimmed down.
Well, another thing with the additive is
yeah.
like every time that you have like +1 base crit, you can conceptualize across all 111 skills in the game. You know that for every single one of these skills, it's going to bring them up 1. Right?
Yes.
Instead of 50% increased crit, where sometimes 50% increased crit is like, and sometimes it's like, 20% or something.
Yep, 100%. Crit is now like a good stat for almost everything that isn't just like a pure dog build.
That's a good thought. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Like, it's just like, oh, you can get like a little bit of armor shred, a little bit of res shred, and a little bit of crit in your build. And because they're different multiplier buckets, they all kind of multiply together and give you like a good value. And you don't need to go too heavy into any one particular one to like see your numbers inflate out, or your overall DPS inflate out. The one thing though that I would be cautious of is builds that use cast on crit, right? Where you want that 100% crit to do another thing. And so the actual crit might not do like no damage, but then something else happens. And so I would like to see support for those kind of builds, whether it's like an affix that's like, additive crit at a much greater rate, but then reduce crit multi.
Do we have actual factual cast on crit things in Last Epoch?
For example, we've got Mana Strike, mana on crit, and you don't use it to do damage, but you need the mana that you get from it. So you want to make sure you basically hit your Mana Strike crit cap.
Sure.
Usually it's fairly easy, but because you have nodes to increase the base. But yeah, as an example, like that's what I'm kind of thinking, right?
Gotcha. I was thinking like cast on crit, like because most of the stuff in Last Epoch is like cast on hit. But sure. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I follow. I will say regarding this whole like this crit change, my biggest concern and the crit change, or I guess the concern that I hear from folks most often, which is also the concern that I agree with, is like, how long ago did this start, and is it going to be implemented in time? Because we have 084 coming out soon. They're testing multiplayer. Multiplayer is going to come out after that. 1.0 is going to come out after that. Like maybe it's a year's time. The game is already not balanced. There's like some huge outliers for skills. Why are we changing the entire crit system, which is going to make things, busted or totally underpowered, and we'll have to rebalance everything from a new state? And can we do all of that in time? So that's the complaint that I've heard, and I'm kind of on board with it. Listen, I don't know the dev's cycle. I don't know how long this has been in the works. If it's been in the works for like 2 weeks, I'm a little nervous about it. If it's been in the work for 6 months, I'm not really worried about it at all. So you know, fundamentally, am I against the change? No, but like, how's the timing going over there? Like, we're gonna have the new druid change. We're gonna have this swarm lord transformation, and something's gonna be busted in that, and something's gonna be underpowered, and like they're gonna need to change all these things while we also have the crit change happening as well. I don't know. So that's my 2 cents on it.
I think
So what do you guys, so what do you guys think though about base item changes? And I'm not talking about the weapons because the weapons just got changed. So what do you think of maybe they adding crit as a baseline on maybe some new gloves or something that they might come out with, or maybe on boots, belts, or another form of gear to help increase crit, or maybe even just having the percentage increases restricted to only those pieces and having the flat increase only restricted to weapons?
Sure.
As far as we understand it, basically every single source of increased crit is just going to be added to crit at the moment. So your Solarium gloves, your or your increased crit affixes, your copper rings, that's all going to be additive. And then sources that are currently additive are going to be adjusted up, so they're much more prevalent. So your melee added crit chance, if it's like 9%, it might be 18% or something like that, right? So we don't know what the numbers are. Could be good, could be bad. I anticipate that it's going to be harder to get crit cap on crit builds.
It doesn't have to be harder. Like this change, they could implement this change in such a way where nothing is stronger or weaker than it currently is. However, they've also stated that they want non-crit hit-based builds to be more competitive and more viable as opposed to their crit counterparts. So while this whole crit change is going on, it's probably going to come alongside a nerf at the same time. So that said, I'm currently playing a build. I'm playing a crit hammer throw build that is not using smite at all. We're scaling hammer throw damage and we're hitting people and that's it. And my base crit is 5 because that's the base crit of everything in the game. And then I'm using a dagger, I guess, to get +4, which is like brings you to 9 base crit. And in my Path of Exile brain, I'm like, 9 base crit's pretty good. And like, let's get crit chance here, crit chance here, crit chance here. We'll be good to go. Before I started thinking about it, somebody pointed out that in my build planner, my crit chance was like 23. And it's like, I might need a little bit more crit chance than that. It's like 9 base crit. You're limited on how many prefixes you have in this game. And like, unless you're using, Solarium gloves that have a crit chance implicit and, double copper rings to get as much crit chance as possible. Unless you're really going out of the way, 9 crit chance is not enough in Last Epoch. Like, when you talk about maybe copper rings changing to +1 flat crit, yeah, I could work with that. Absolutely. I could make some actual builds go crit all of a sudden.
Yeah, more sources of additive crit would have been my first suggestion for like this kind of change to balance crit builds in the future and making low crit or non-crit builds competitive, or like just having more about the low crit builds, right? Because we're about like, just having other sources of additive, and it's not just like unread scroll or melee additive as your 2 main like base components, right? And then you're throwing, well, too bad. You get a rune dagger and that's it.
I just found out that throwing builds, your throwing critical strike chance isn't even listed in your character stat sheet.
Wait, really?
Yeah, it's not a real
it's
build.
Not
so,
even listed. I mean,
I-
you can just guess, or like you can do the math, but
Yeah.
I think this might have been an oversight. This is probably not a feature. This is probably a bug, but
Yeah, that feels like a bug, given that affixes for throwing crit exist.
there's affixes for increased throwing critical strike chance. There's no affixes for flat throwing critical strike. Thank you very much.
I mean, maybe that's something we can fix in the future.
So, anyways, for the past couple days, I've just been memeing it up on Twitch, making all sorts of jokes about, is this additive crit? Is this increased crit? I can't figure it out. Chat, you tell me the answer. What do you think it's supposed to be? It's been a good time though. All right. How about another topic? I've got something that I want to ask you about, Amarathy. I want to ask you about ethical builds, unethical builds, and what you think about when you're putting together a build guide.
Well, it's nice stream. See you guys. So,
See ya. Bye, everyone. We'll talk to you later.
sorry, someone's at the door. I gotta go.
Goodbye. So I had someone come into my own stream asking for, like, I want to do this, and I want a new build. And I said, you know what? I have a perfect build for you. Go ask Amarathy. Go to Amarathy's YouTube channel. He's surely he's got a YouTube video about this, because he's been playing this build for like a week or two, and it's really good. And Amarathy's like, yeah, we're not doing that. We're not going to make a build guide. We're not going to make a build guide. We're not going to talk about this build. We're not going to play it on stream anymore. I'm like, Amarathy, buddy. So how about, can you tell me about that build and kind of tell me about, the creation process behind this thing?
Was that the Frostbite build?
It's the Frostbite build, that one right there.
Okay, all right. No, unfortunately, like as soon as that build went live, I think there was like Kissing and another dev in the channel like the very day, and I was like, oh my god, it's already nerfed. And like I guess it's hard for me because I don't know where the power level should lie for a lot of builds, and so it's hard for me to recommend if something is ethical or unethical, and what interactions are kind of intended, what aren't. So, like, some of it really exists in the gray area. I don't think there's really anything out of the ordinary within Frostbite build itself. It's just like, because it was getting that much ward, and you look at ward nodes in the spell blade tree, and it's just like gain 5 ward every 3 seconds, and then you've got a ward build that's like getting 20k ward, like 50k ward, whatever. So it's just like, where is a healthy amount of ward in that particular build? And because of that, I just don't know. Is this going to get guarded? Is this going to be looked at? I don't think it's like super OP or anything like that. I think it's actually like it's probably one of the strongest Spellblade builds, and it's on par with other strong Spellblade builds at the moment. So I think Tinny's pushed it up to like 350-ish in the arena, and like, for example, Lizard ran the Bastion Illuminating Firebrand combo for like 350 plus in one of the 20s or something like that. So it's kind of like on the same level, right? So when I talk about like unethical versus ethical, that's the gray area for me. When I say, like, my Necro Bomber that's getting 80k to 150k ward, I'm going to say that's going to get gutted. And then, like, there's just stuff that I know that shouldn't exist that way, and it's just like spaghetti code, such as unethical shurikens, for example. And I'm like, no, don't play this. This is not how it's meant to work. And that's where I draw a hard line.
I have been playing this game for maybe 9 months at this point, in last Epoch, and I just found out maybe 2 days ago what the unethical shuriken build is. No one's mentioned it to me. No one's told me that it's busted. No one told me that it existed. I feel like information is important. We gotta tell the masses what these builds are, so they know that they at the very least exist.
I think there was like a good portion of time where there, like quite a few people were trying out the unethical shurikens build. Someone posted on the forums at the start of the patch, and then, like, chucked a Bastion on it or whatever. And then it wasn't until we saw like an empowered bomb kill in like 6 seconds, we're like, no, that's doing way too much damage. What's the source of this? And kind of like working backwards to realize that Blade Shield is altering the base ability to allow it to shotgun, and then you still get the spray effect, and it's all kind of like silly like that. So I don't know. Like, I think the devs are fairly aware of it. I sometimes like to play unethical builds just to highlight and say, this is really strong, and I want to get it gutted.
And you want to get it gutted.
Yeah.
And see, that was about to be my next question, is like, if you stumble upon something that you think is like insanely overtuned, like to the point where it probably shouldn't be in the game, does that give you impetus to say, hey, check this out? We probably don't want this round because it's going to basically make the game, I don't want to say boring necessarily, but like eventually you hit a point with a lot of those builds where you're just like, all right, cool, yeah, I've done this now. And like a lot of people, I think, lose interest when they do things like that for too long.
Yeah, absolutely. Like the whole Necro Bomber thing was because I knew that like you could get big ward with zombies somehow, and I never played it, and I didn't really know the skill too much, and I was like, why didn't this get nerfed in 8.3 when it was a problem in 8.2? It got barely looked at. Well, I'm gonna make a build to get it nerfed.
Maybe 80,000 ward is what you really need to make ward viable. Maybe that's it.
It could be.
Who knows?
I mean, you look at the EHP values of a Blade Dancer at the moment that's running 100% Glancing Blow, 100% block chance, high dodge, high armor, high HP, frailty for free. Maybe 80k ward isn't too out there by comparison.
You're just not allowed to use a Bastion though.
Oh,
okay. I heard as the so I'm never able to tune into the Friday dev streams because I'm always busy during that time. But everyone shares with me clips from the dev stream. So one of the ones from this past week was like, Mike, the dev who hosts the streams, he's like, oh, hopefully Void Knights aren't using shields as long as we're, developing skills correctly and developing Void Knights correctly. Like they should be incentivized not to use skills. And then he kind of moved on past and started talking about something else. But it's like, like if you want me not to use a shield, you really shouldn't have Bastion in the game. Like that shield is messed up.
Yeah.
Come on, give me that. Every Void Knight that I play has a Bastion on it, or wants to have a Bastion on it.
Simultaneously scaling Vitality as a defensive and an offensive stat that works with basically everything, including damage over time stuff.
I can't believe they did that.
A Bastion on, right?
It's pretty good as it turns out.
Yeah.
But thematically, Void Knights shouldn't be using shields because there's one node that you're supposed to take that reduces your block chance. So yeah, it's unethical to use a Bastion.
That makes sense. Same with the Forge Guard because they've got that one two-ended node up the top, right?
Correct.
You should definitely never use it.
But so you mentioned something a while ago at the very beginning of this podcast. You said like you like that there's no stat sticks. And this is something that was not immediately apparent to me when I started playing Last Epoch. You don't need a shield to block.
Nope.
If you just have like, +1 chance to block on your ring, your character has 1% chance to block on your ring. Like, that's so cool. You can build block on a character with a two-handed sword. It's a little weird, but you can. Oh.
Yeah, I think because you can do the Warpath thing as well and get like a 20% there. And I was running I think it was my Eternal Eclipse build that I morphed it into basically a 50% block chance with a two-ended.
Sure.
Eternal Eclipse, and I was like, yep, cool.
Awesome.
It works. It's a good damage reduction.
There's some weird things that happen when you like have everything in the game count as a stat stick. Yes. You don't need a shield. You don't need a wand. You don't need like a sword. You just the fact this is one of the first things about Last Epoch that kind of drew me in. The fact that they give you a wand and it's a melee weapon. It's like I'm coming from Path of Exile. It's like in Path of Exile, you can't hit people with a stick if it's small. But like in Last Epoch, it's a stick. You just bonk somebody with it. It's endearing. I love it.
100% for sure, right?
Yup.
And just having like fireballs that chill is
why not?
Sure. So yeah, right. It's
I want to change chill, and it's a part of a broader campaign that I'm trying to lead. I am so bored of stun and I'm bored of freeze. I want both those things like reworked in Last Epoch, or maybe just in every game. And I just happen to be playing Last Epoch right now. So there's freeze rate multi, and there's stun chance. And like, yeah, stun chance is fine. Freeze rate multi is garbage, but bear with me for a second. If you have enough stun chance, you stun the monster, and then the monster doesn't do anything because it's stunned. If you have enough freeze rate multi, you freeze the monster, and the monster just stands there and doesn't do anything because it's frozen. But if you have 90% of the threshold of freeze rate multi or 90% of the threshold of stun chance in order to stun something or freeze something, you're not stunning it and you're not freezing it, and all of that investment is wasted. So I've been calling this like binary, and I'm so bored of it. Get this nonsense out of here. I don't want stun. I don't want my player to get stunned. I don't want monsters to get stunned. I don't want monsters to get frozen. If there's like some big telegraphed attack that stuns me or freezes me, like Hayrot has that freeze laser that he shoots at you in one of the level 90 monoliths. Yeah, sure. Like, let that freeze me. But like the rest of it, I'm kind of over it. There's been a dev response recently as well. One of the devs on the forums for last Epoch was saying that they're familiar with the wonky state of stun right now, and they're looking at stun avoidance, which is a stat that you can get on your gear, and they're like, yeah, we know that this is bad because you're supposed to, according to the devs, you're supposed to build stun avoidance on characters that have bad defense in order to get stun avoidance, but it's a suffix, which you could use that suffix to get life, so that then you would have life and stun avoidance, because life gives you stun avoidance. But it's like, oh my God, I'm so over it. Just get out of this. I don't want stun. I want it out of here.
Intrinsically linking stun and freeze to max HP on both yourself and enemy monsters is terrible. For yourself, it just overvalues max HP, and that's why like increased health is by far the most common thing. And then you look at on enemy monsters, and it's like, oh, cool, I can stun things until I can't because they just have too much life. I'm never going to stun a boss. I'm never going to freeze a boss. Freeze is coming along only because of frostbite. It's starting to work in that capacity, but stun, I just that's basically my response. I think I'd be happy with it going. My suggestions has always been for both freeze and stun. If they are going to be a effective defensive layer by UCCing enemies, it should work in a very similar fashion to crit, in that it consumes a lot of your, like, you have a base stun chance for certain attacks, and you can scale increased and base stun chance. And so like slow heavy hitting abilities will have a very high stun chance. Like, you can go 60, 80%, whatever. All enemies should also have like stun lock duration. Sorry, I mean stun lock immunity, because nothing should just be permanently stun locked. But like, then at least you're investing points that you could be investing into your own survivability for another defensive layer by actually stunning things, right? So if you have like a lot of increased stun and base stun on your gear, that's stuff that's not health or whatever, right? So there's that opportunity cost trade-off, and it doesn't matter about max HP or anything like that. It's just percent chance. Enemy mobs that are like little skeleton things stunning you because it's wave 300 in the arena is yeah, get rid of that. Large telegraphed attacks makes sense. Small little skeletals doing like a little bow attack,
Pew pew pew.
and because it's been scaled up so much, it just does big damage. And it stuns you, and you're like, no.
Well, thank you for joining me on my crusade to remove freeze and stun from these games, or significantly change them. You can sign up over here on the billboard, so that's good.
I think
I'm
we
passionate
should
about
make
this. I want this
elements
gone.
great again. Has that acronym been taken yet? Or maybe we can use that.
What is it?
Make ailments great again.
I don't know. I want to stay away from that. I know you're in Australia, but I'm in the US, and I just rather
Yeah.
not.
Dangerous topic, right?
Probably don't want to go down that path.
It's just called Mega. That's all it is. You just call it Mega, not MAGA. Mega.
Ugh. I don't pronounce things that well. I stumble all the time. All right, so what else is going on? What do you want to talk about Swarm Daddy?
Oh yes.
So Swarm Lord. I don't think we've talked about this. It's been 2 weeks since the last podcast.
We have not.
So Swarm Lord is the real name for it, right? I think.
Blade?
I believe so. Hold on.
We literally have to double check what the real name is because we're not
I
sure.
thought it was called Swarm Blade.
Oh, is it Swarm Blade?
It might be Swarm
Yeah, yeah.
Blade.
Yeah,
Oh,
I think it's Swarm Blade.
Scyther. Is it Scyther form? Twitch chat's
Scyther
telling me
form?
that it's Kha'Zix form from League of Legends.
Yeah, which basically makes
I
it
think it's the new
Scyther from
form.
Pokemon.
Sure. Okay, good. So Swarm Blade form, Moth Father, King Bee, whatever you want to call him, is the new
Moth
transformation coming out for Druid in December, which is less than 45 days from now is what we've been told, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and it looks awesome. Speaking of things that look like video games that make me want to play Primalist, we've got one. I am all about it.
That is the first thing that I noticed about it where I was like, okay, I got to play Primalist now, was because it looked so awesome with the way they had skinned it and everything. So I'm definitely going to start playing Primalist now whenever that comes out, because that is the first thing on my bucket list to try now is the changes with it. And they're going to have the other changes too with the Spriggan as well. I can't wait to see what Quiet For Me finds that's busted with that, because you know he's going to be playing with the Spriggan form again.
Oh god, and his whole belt and everything got changed too. Yeah, yeah, I guess we'll see how that turns out. So the first thing, if we're gonna like brainstorm ideas or anything, I'll tell you that the first thing that stood out for me about Swarm Blade, which is apparently his name, there's a node in the Swarm Blade tree that says his basic attack with his, 2 Scyther arms is replaced with Serpent Strike. So like you can use the Serpent Strike tree while doing this, and it does not require a pole arm, which is like, super interesting. Because like on the one hand, you're not locked behind a pole arm. You could dual wield, you can use some daggers, you could do some poison stuff. But on the other hand, because you're a druid and you're not a beastmaster, you don't get access to Aspect of the Viper. So like it's this great new trade-off, and I am all about it. Can't wait to try it out.
I love it. I actually think the bleed variant could be very, very strong, or like a bleed poison hybrid, because like within the Serpent Strike tree, there's that node that increases your dot damage. So you start looking at bleed being a lot of your upfront damage to like quickly kill packs and monsters, while poison giving you that extra reach for single target damage. So that'll be probably one of the first things I go for.
Do you think that we'll have an effective way of scaling both bleed effect and poison effect at the same time?
Well,
Salt the wound.
I can't wait.
Yeah.
Oh, that's gonna be so busted, stacking all that multi-crit with it too.
And there is a generic crit multiplier while transformed affix currently in the game.
Can't wait. There is I'll hit you with another one here. So something that has changed with Primalist with the addition of the Swarm Blade transformation is that all of a sudden Primalist is fun and gets a movement skill. We have a movement skill, which makes me start thinking about Baldur's Wrath again. The two-handed maze. We're going to play some EQ Mothfather. Yes. It looks nice and snappy. It looks like it's kind of like Shift from Rogue. And yeah, I don't know. Something about that instead of like the dash from the Werebear. I didn't even know what the dash from the Werebear is because it's being reworked, right? Like they're slowing it down,
like
they're making it like
channeled.
more fumbly. So now the nice snappy playstyle is gonna be over on Druid instead, or sorry, over on Swarmblade instead. So yes, I'm totally in for this.
It looks really flashy, the dive skill. And I've kind of like looked at all the teasers and actually downloaded them, gone frame by frame, because that's what I love doing, and actually like trying to pick things out. So we know that there's going to be a cold form, and the cold form is going to change all your abilities. We know there is ways to do spin without collecting any minions, and I think the cool thing I liked with dive is that you can double dash. So in one of the clips, I'm not sure if it's like it resets on kill or you can just do it like immediately after, but you can double dive, which is
If that
pretty cool. Might be
something
charges.
it's gonna be busted.
Can I double dive and then transform into a werebear and then use rampage? Can I do that?
I'm sure you can.
Oh,
See, now we're talking.
we've got like some combo builds. Like instead of just holding down right click, we're gonna start clicking some buttons. This sounds exciting.
I reckon the combo
I'm
stuff is
kind of
going to be
like
stronger,
this.
right?
Yes, absolutely.
We get to play as Volibear and Kha'Zix at the same time. We're only 3 characters short of a full League of Legends team.
And you are controlling everyone, so it's the perfect League of Legends team.
Yeah, but then who do I flame when we
surely-
lose?
Is it Maokai? Or
Yeah,
there's a tree daddy in
Maokai. Maokai's the tree.
Freaking forms for Maokai. So you got
there you go.
Volibear and Maokai.
All right, we're-
I apologize to everyone listening to this in the future. I'm sorry for calling everything Moth Daddy and Tree Daddy. My bad. My mistake.
we also
I guess
get,
the only weakness of
we also have,
the Swarm Blade is going to be a lamp. We're just going to like
Get out of
go
here.
around it, and so,
Stop it.
ooh. Does he take extra radiant damage? like are the light mages just gonna one shot me? Hold on.
little bug swatters.
All right, we've got 5 minutes left. How many more
Jesus.
dad jokes do we have to make? What do you got?
I
Good.
won't do any more, I promise.
It's been a pleasure talking to Amarathy here. Not only have I been looking forward to this for a while, but just having the corgi butt wiggle around every 5 minutes or so in the background, it's exactly what I wanted. It's great.
Yes, it's been absolutely amazing.
Hey, he's gone now, otherwise I can thank you. Yeah. Never mind.
All right, then, guys. That's going to do it here for last week of Epoch. I'd like to thank you again, Amarathy, for being on the show. And
you.
from all of us here at last week of Epoch, you guys have a good night, and we'll catch you in the next one.